Hello, I'm Dr. David Rosensweet, and it's 1 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. You've tuned into I Wonder Doctor Live. And today I'm going to answer questions like I always do. And then also I'd like to talk to you about eating and changes in your nutrition. And one of my favorite things to do during this time is if you have a question, if you call it in direct to me at 888-502-8886, we hold those as the highest priority questions that we receive. And also we receive many questions by email, and so I'll also answer those during the time we have allotted today. So I'd like to invite an honored guest, someone that you may recognize, I certainly do, to help me talk about this first topic about nutrition. Because so many people, when they face the reality that, oh my God, I've got to eat better, and they start diving into the world of, well, what should I eat and what's the right thing to do, that they get overwhelmed because there's so much information out there and there are so many different approaches, and most of those approaches, or so many of those approaches, are valid. Come on, your treasured guest.
Thank you.
This is Joshua. And there's so many different approaches, and in fact, the very first book I read by a PhD nutritionist in the early 1980s was called Are You Confused? People were confused even back then. But we want to get it to where you can implement it and get it right. And so I'd like to say that at the core of good nutrition is the food that you eat. It's good food. And it's being able to understand what constitutes good food and being able to shop for it. And that's where it all begins.
We opened this discussion when we were talking about this morning with, okay, that's a nice idea. And I think to some degree we all know that we should eat better. And we wish we would, and sometimes we do, and we frequently don't stick to it. And where I started getting really excited about this conversation was in the concept of, can you actually enjoy the taste of healthy food as much as the other stuff? And I would say that the honest answer is immediately, day one, you're used to a hamburger and macaroni diet, and you immediately switch over to a veggies and salad or whatever diet. The honest answer is the honest answer is no. No.
Yeah, the biggest pushback.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm going to get healthy nutrition and I'm going to hate it. Whereas right now, I love eating. It's so enjoyable to me. So I'm going to give that up so I can get healthy, right?
Yeah.
The big conundrum.
And I found for myself, at least, that anything I'm going to actually stick to, really do, not do for a little while, not do after a New Year's resolution, not do for a month or 2 months and then subtly let it slide. I'm not going to stick to anything unless I enjoy it. So some concept that I'll just shift over my diet to the better for me, should do it, gotta do it, 20 years from now I'll really thank myself that I did it diet.
Doesn't quite cut it for you.
Doesn't cut it and doesn't stick.
Yeah. Well, let me approach it from several different angles. One is, I have had a career-long theory that the human body finds most delicious that which is best for it, that which supports health and vitality and clear thinking and good mood. And they've even done it's a well-known experiment in the world of medicine, and maybe to many others, that they took toddlers, a whole group of them, and they put food right in front of them. And they put 2 different groups of food in front of them. One of them was processed food, sometimes called junk food, high sweets, high sugar, high candy, high chocolate. That was one pile. And in the other pile, they put vegetables, like a whole carrot, broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, salads. Now you tell me, by making a guess, what do you think the toddlers chose?
Well, I know the answer,
Yes,
but
you
I
do.
do know the assumption I would have made. I would have made the assumption that they're going to go for the high sugar diet. After all, that's what I see kids grab for.
Right.
And that's what I see them, beg for.
And that is not what these toddlers did in this scientific study. They went for the healthy food. They didn't know the difference. However, we know that by an early age, for the vast majority of Americans and people all over the world, that they start growing up on fast food, convenience food, bottles, boxes, and cans, processed food. That's what we grow up on. Why? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. And some of them are just the speed at which life is taking place for people. They don't have time, they think, to shop and cook and do all those things. But there's other reasons, there are nefarious reasons how the food industry drove us there for a lot of reasons. But what we do know is the majority of people in America are eating fast food, convenience food, bottled boxes and cans, processed food as the majority of what their diet is. And what happens is, after a while, you start thinking that this is comfort food, this is family food, this is the good food, this is the best food.
I had an example of this in my life, sort of like this. When, as you know, when Maya was coming to Earth, we went and lived in Mexico for 7 months. And where we lived in Mexico, when I arrived, the food was way too salty for
Would
me.
you define Maya's coming to Earth?
My wife was pregnant with my
Maya,
first
who
daughter.
wasn't named at that time, was inside
Yes.
Jen's
Right.
abdomen.
So there we
to
are,
speak.
pregnant, not me, my wife, living down in Mexico for 7 months. And when we got there, the diet was very, very salty for me. And I thought too salty. And we were down there day after day, and so I kept eating it. And by the time we left, it no longer tasted too salty to me. And in fact, when I returned to the States, the diet was not salty enough.
Mm-hmm.
And why I'm bringing this up is you mentioned something to me this morning that I went, yeah, you said that you frequently challenged your patients. You've said, so do you think I enjoy my food less? Speaking of you personally, and your answer was
there's a couple.
no.
There's a couple topics right there.
Yeah,
I mean, the first topic is
I'm coming back around to it.
okay.
You
Pardon me.
You said, no, I enjoy my food as much now as I ever had. And you would challenge, you enjoy your food as much as people who are eating high salt, high sugar, high whatever diets. And I went,
Yeah.
how? How can that be true? Are your taste buds magically different than theirs? And the point that I was trying to get at is, no, we adjust to the diets that we eat over time.
Yeah.
And to adjust to something healthier does not happen immediately. It's a process. As I got back in the States and got back on that lower salt diet, eventually that was the right amount of salt again. And of course, as I get healthier and healthier, what the right amount of salt is for my taste buds, as just an example, went down and down. And sugar went down and down into where I could honestly, realistically, not on a soapbox reason, like the taste of a healthier diet.
Yeah. Well, I want to break down some elements that I see in what you were saying.
Yeah,
It's not just the salt and the sugar.
right, those are just examples.
They're small compared to what I hear from patients is, you grow up and you eat day after day the diet that you eat. And if it's primarily processed and doesn't have a lot of fresh vegetables in it, for example, you bond with, so to speak. You think what is comfort food because there's so much to eating. I mean, there's your family around there, what your parents did, what your brothers and sisters did. There's a deep connection to what you grew up on. Whether it's healthy for you or not, it's the emotional ties that I think are absolutely strongest. The salt and sugar is part of it, and there's reasons why there's so much salt and sugar in those bottles, boxes, and cans and processed food is because when food is not fresh, it loses a lot of its natural taste. In fact, the tastiest vegetables, for example, come if you picked them out of your garden that morning. And we live in Florida. If they're coming from California, even if they're the highest quality food, there's days in transit there. There's days in coolers. They don't taste as good. because they've lost a lot of the vitamin and mineral contents, a lot of which makes up the taste there. And then worse than that, if you take a vegetable and you dry it out and you mix it up with grains and you make some processed macaroni and cheese, for example, it loses so much of its taste just by going through the machinery and cracking the grains and stuff, that the fast food industry is very well aware of that. So what do? They have to stimulate the taste buds, and they use powerful things to do that, and they use salt and sugar.
And MSG and
exactly.
cheap fats. And
exactly. Those cheap fats, those trans fats that people, they add a certain taste. It's not the true fat taste, it's not the optimal taste, but it factors into the formula they use to get you connected / addicted to the stuff that they're producing. It has long shelf lives, oh yeah, but it's got all kinds of problems for your physical body. And so when you grow up on that and you spend decades in it and someone shows you a fresh vegetable and you taste it, it tastes odd. And people don't like it, and people say, eat your veggies. Yeah, well, you eat the veggies. I don't like them at all. I've never met a vegetable that I liked. I hear all kinds of stuff out there. And the same goes for eggs. I mean, you get used to these eggs that haven't seen a chicken for 3 weeks or 3 months because they've been sitting in some warehouse for a while. And you compare that to a fresh egg that just came off the farm like we get. And, you know, they go, this fresh stuff tastes weird to me. So the transition that I say is optimal for health is the toddler diet. We make a transition to what? This is how non-complex nutrition is. You make a transition to real food, not bottled, boxed, canned fast foods. They're so altered. That's the transition you've got to make. In order to make that transition, that's a whole other story. And maybe we get to that story right now, but I want to talk about what's so problematic. Well, people look at my diet, as is very much displayed in the videos that we have on I Wonder Doctor, because we do recipes there, and they go, are you kidding me? That looks so boring. And I say, yeah, well, I assert this, that I enjoy eating as much as anybody on this planet. I'm taking you back to the toddler experience. I love eating. We just had what? Rice and vegetables for lunch. It was absolutely delicious to me with olive oil on it and soy sauce on it. It was absolutely delicious to me. So I'm just saying that because it's liable to be that these dietary shifts you want to make will land you in a situation where you like your eating better. I certainly do. I remember enjoying eating when I was a kid. And a lot of things happen when you get healthier. You get more conscious, you get more vital, you pay more attention. I'm eating the carrot, I taste the carrot. Lots of reasons for this, but I'm taking you back to the toddler. They choose what's most delicious for them, and they chose the real foods because we're designed to eat real food. You know, stuff out of a garden, a fresh cow.
Here we are in huge territory,
Yeah.
and there's nothing you're saying I don't totally agree with. And I've got my own spark in this conversation, and that it's that of all the stuff we've said, the piece that feels newest to me is that it may not feel in the transition towards healthier food like you're not giving something up.
Yes.
And yet, fast forward to yourself a month or 6 months or a year from now, and imagine that that person has made that slow transition to foods that are healthier. I submit, and you submit, that you hit a point where those foods actually are tasty and satisfying,
Right.
and fill those spots that the other foods fill now. And so what's the journey? It's to find a realistic way to make that transition from point A to point B. Make the right amount of decision changes to get yourself there without doing that thing that I opened up with, which was going to something that hurts. And I mean, a little pain's fine, but you hate. that you could stick to for a week, you could
Right.
stick to for a month, but there's no way you'll stick to it
Well,
forever.
this is the underlying premise of I Wonder Doctor.
Yeah.
We're real people leading real lives in real time. And if I'm going to make a change, I better design that change properly. I better not throw myself over a cliff and make myself go to the 100% thing right away.
Yeah.
So I try and identify. And I have these projects going all the time. And right now it's drinking more water. So this morning, instead of having a cup of coffee, I showed up in the office with a glass of water. And I didn't cut out coffee cold. I drank a lot of the glass of water, and then I went and made a cup of coffee. How can you design a transition to what's going to make you feel better? And that's part of the greatness. I still say you're going to love food more than you ever have once you get there, because it's what's designed for you. But can you make a change that you can actually implement? So that's, how we try and design these things. So sometimes it might, here's a change that I recommend for people. That you take one of your favorite meals and you look at what the ingredients are in that meal, and if any of it's come out of a bottle, box, or can, you just replace the ingredient with fresh vegetables from the supermarket, or better yet, from the farmer's market. Oh my goodness, when you discover farmers markets and you get to enjoy their prices and you get to enjoy the freshness of their foods, that's where the greatness is. But let's say it's a box of a spinach casserole. Well, instead of using the box, you take the basic ingredients and you make it. Now that's going pretty far, a whole spinach casserole. But you get the principle that you take the foods that you already love. Let's say that you love fast food hamburgers. Fantastic.
Yeah.
You go to a grocery store, and instead of buying a pre-made patty, you buy a half pound or a pound of hamburger. You get buns from the bakery part of that store that look like the freshest and tastiest to you. You buy a fresh onion if you like onions, and you get the exact same burger. Looks like the same burger, but it's made out of fresh ingredients. That's the transition we suggest, and we suggest that I like 5-year plans. Most people are not in such nutritional urgency that they got to switch in a month. On the contrary, that can discourage them from doing anything. But I do like 5-year plans. So what if today you decided that you wanted to make a change in nutrition? Like, let's say you're eating too much sugar and your doctor tells you got diabetes. And you got to cut down the sweets. So I don't ever tell a patient, you cut down the sweets in them right now. I try and identify what sweets they're eating. Let's say they're drinking 4 Coca-Colas a day. I say, here's our first goal. Let's take a month to do it. Cut it down to 3. And if they succeed at that, because that's doable, then they come back to the office to talk to me or one of our health coaches, and they feel better, they're proud. They were actually able to accomplish that. And we say, now, next step, cut it down to 2. And that's what you were saying earlier about Mexico and leaving Mexico, is that you had to gradually downstep yourself.
Yeah, that's right. And those little successes feel like successes.
Yeah.
When we do it, when we set ourselves a goal that we can do and we do it, we tell ourselves, I do it. I set a goal and I do it. If we set a goal too lofty,
yeah,
and we fail at the goal, we tell ourselves, I don't achieve my goal. So part of this is set a goal that's a scope you can actually do. And I think I should roll back off set here, but the other part for me is know that there is a rainbow at the end of this, and it's called good food. It may not taste like it right now, or some of it might taste too health foody, but it won't. You will adjust, at least I did. And I really, like you said, I honestly like the taste of a really good salad.
Yeah.
Right? It does it for me. That's a great dinner, not just because it's good for me, but because it satisfies my desire for food that I like to consume. Brings me joy.
Sir.
Sir.
Oh, what a pleasure.
What a pleasure.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
You know I see you all day, every day, which is a great, great blessing, let me tell you. And you can call us with any questions you have about this the 1 o'clock time slot, in which you have questions about your physical health. And the number is 888-502-8886. Operators are on standby to receive your call. And we have a call from Rachel. We have an email from Rachel from Muskogee, Oklahoma. I have heard that high doses of vitamin D will help me with both keeping my brain from getting Alzheimer's and also that it's good for menopause. Do you agree? Thank you, doctor. Yes. And there's some other things I'd like to add to this. As far as vitamin D is good for us all of the time, every moment we're walking on Earth, we want to have the right amount of vitamin D. And because of increased nutritional needs from stresses and diminished nutrients in the food we're actually eating, unless they're coming out of our garden or fresh from the organic farmer's market, they're deficient in the vitamins and minerals. And it turns out that every one of these vitamins, they're called essential. That means we need them. And if we don't have them, it doesn't work. And so vitamin D, that's a common one that we want to have rich levels of in our body. And to get there, it isn't going to be enough to be out in the sun for most people. So I recommend taking a supplement of vitamin D from when you're a teenager, for example, or even when you're a child. I recommend first a multivitamin and mineral as the base camp to supplement our increased needs and the diminished vitamins, minerals in the food supply in general. I like extra vitamin C, and I always like extra vitamin D. And you want it from a good company, and you want anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 international units a day. And ultimately, vitamin D, because it's fat soluble, you need to have blood tests to make sure that you're not taking too much. That's not true of B vitamins. If you have excessive B vitamins, it's no big deal. You're just going to urinate them out. But fat-soluble vitamins, you're going to accumulate in your fat. Now, as far as menopause go, well, one of the most well-known things that happens in menopause, among many changes that can occur, is you can lose bone. And you ever hear of vitamin D and strong bones? It's right. It's correct. So for that aspect of menopause alone, having the right amount of vitamin D in your body is very important. So again, every single patient that I've ever had, I not only have proper levels of vitamin D, in fact I test all my patients, but also the other vitamins and minerals, the basics. And you can see those in I Wonder Doctor and go to the store and you'll see what we recommend there. And then, as far as getting Alzheimer's, well, yeah, the brain needs so many things, and vitamin D is right up there. But there's a multitude of things, and when I hear the word Alzheimer's, let's talk about the pre-Alzheimer's, because the best time to catch brain stuff is as early as you can catch it. And so much is known about this. It's amazing. There is a best-selling book out there called The End of Alzheimer's by David Bredesen, MD. And it is the state of the art. And when you start diving into the details of anyone who has Alzheimer's, yes, vitamin D is in there, but there is at least 36 big-time stuff that relate to diminished cognitive function. And of course, there's diminished cognitive function that's common, that's not Alzheimer's, but in menopause, because of diminished hormones in general, especially diminished estrogens. So there's common causes of mild cognitive dysfunction, but when you're using the word Alzheimer's, and my God, there seems to be an epidemic of Alzheimer's. It was extremely rare when I was in medical school. Well, there's a lot of reasons why there is. So if you or a family member has some very significant cognitive changes, decline, I so recommend that you start with that book by Dr. Dale Bredesen, The End of Alzheimer's. And in that book, you're going to see a lot of information. And it's a project, so you implement it over time. And Dr. Bredesen has laid down the primary causes, and there's a multitude of them, something so significant as to lose the ability to remember and think and converse. You can be sure there was a lot of different things to happen to that brain. So Dr. Bredesen brings up the 36 or something like that most important things to look at. Vitamin D is in that list. So I'm just wanting to expand our idea of vitamin D. Oh yeah, love it. But there's a lot of other things that relate to our health, and especially when you're talking about cognitive decline. And here's a question from David in Bloomington, Illinois. I was inspired by what you said last week about actual implementation, that it's what we actually change and do better that matters, and that to do this, we must be kind to ourselves and only take on bites we can actually chew. That must be a metaphor. This isn't really a question. Yeah, I'm sort of getting that, David, but it's quite an editorial comment here, one that I respect enormously. I just wanted to say that this has been the key to practically everything for me. I used to set unattainable goals and never stick to them, and then beat myself up when I failed. Being kind and taking on little bits at a time has been a life changer for me. Thank you for saying this out loud and so clearly. Also, getting help makes such a difference. I ask my wife to hold me accountable for what I tell her I want to change. I have a friend meet me for my walks. I find that I stick to things so much better when I'm accountable to other people. Sorry I rambled on. Warm regards from another Michigan, David. Bloomington, Illinois. At any rate, how well said, David. I don't really want to add to the pristine comment that this is. It's really, we want to design, and I am adding to it obviously, we want to design for ourselves something we can do. And we've got busy lives. We've got a million things going on. So many people do. So I said it earlier today. I'll say it again. Design a program that can actually work for you. Choose one single thing. A wonderful ally and teacher, Rick Hansen, has got, and he's a psychologist, and he works in the world of emotions and mind and life. And he's got a column called Just One Thing. It's online, Rick Hansen. You can sign up for his newsletter. And he does this with psychology. He says just one thing. He tries to present one idea that you'll have a shot at remembering and implementing. So David, well said. I shouldn't really say more. And one more question from Jonathan R. Doesn't say where, you don't say where you're from, but hello to you, Jonathan. My 15-year-old son found your video about shy people in social situations. Usually he wants to tell me, if he tells me anything, about chess or video games or skateboarding stunts he finds on YouTube. Last week it was you and your son. Do you have a series for teenagers? If you don't, would you consider making one? Thank you so much. Wow. Impactful. It matters to me. I have teenage granddaughters, and I was a teenager at one time. And Jonathan, let me say this. I would definitely consider making a series for teenagers. I love that idea. And what I'd like, if you would, is to email us a subject that you would like us to talk about in video. And even better yet, if you're up for it, next week, call in to 888-502-8886 and let's talk about what matters to you. Help us design this series. Now, my 18-year-old granddaughter is plenty busy. She's going off to college here soon. But my 14-year-old granddaughter, I'm going to enroll her in this question. So, Jonathan, hopefully you and Molly will help us design what matters to teens. And I'd love to do this. Thank you so much for your interest, and let's co-design it. Start by just emailing or calling in one subject that you would find interesting, that really relates to what you want, to what you need. Thank you for your interest, Jonathan. I'd love to create a series for teenagers. It's a perfect time, and with plenty of hunger. Well, how does this world work? What works? What works for health? What works for fun? What works for life? These are such wonderful questions for us to address at I Wonder Doctor. And that's all our time for this week, Thursday at 1 o'clock. Send us your emails, ask a doc, go to our website, iwonderdoctor.com, email in your questions to Ask a Doc. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you. I'm Dr. David Rosensweet for I Wonder Doctor.